Welcome to the 12th episode of Shift Inside. And this one is going to be special. Like, first, because, well, if you're on YouTube, you're seeing me. First one that I do is a video, because today I have a special guest. I'm inviting a dear friend and soul sister, Juliette, who is going to tell you more of what she's doing. And I wanted to keep on talking about the topic of, spirituality, the spiritual path, and all the traps we can fall into. This is something I've been talking about in my previous episode, where I'm sharing my personal journey and the traps that I've been into. And because I had Juliette on the phone yesterday, I was like, you know what? Should we just do that episode? Like, do you also want to speak about and share your personal journey, your spiritual journey, and what are the traps that you fell into? And so I just actually finished recording the episode with Juliette, and it was such a beautiful discussion where really we shared with our open heart what happened to us, what are the traps you can fall into. And oh my god, there are so many beautiful nuggets. I feel like I'm going to have to listen to it again, because there is such a deep wisdom and knowledge that we're bringing to the table for you to snack on it. So yeah, without further ado, I'll let you enjoy the conversation. Okay, welcome Juliette. I'm super happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Such a pleasure. Yeah, and so for you listening, we had a discussion yesterday with Juliette. I published my last podcast episode and I was talking about all the pitfalls you can fall into when you are on your spiritual journey. And we were speaking about that as well, and I just realized that she also had like other experiences that I didn't necessarily have, or like that I didn't think about. So I was like, hey, you know what? Do you want to come on the podcast and you will speak about your experience as well? Because then, like you're gonna have more more shares of experiences. So hopefully there is less traps you're gonna fall into, or like more traps you're gonna realize. So yeah, Julia, do you want to introduce yourself for our audience?
Thank you, Marine. I'm very excited to be here to have this opportunity, as it's my first time joining a podcast live. Very excited. My name is Juliette Laufer. I am, amongst many things, a soul healer on a mission to heal Gaia. And I do that by helping men, women, whatever you identify with, to reconnect to their essence. I am a trauma-informed certified family constellator, and I create quantum travels for people to reconnect all their parts, be able to liberate their traumas, their experiences, whatever they want to get liberated from, in order to understand their lives and be able to walk more authentically, understanding where they come from, where they're going, and not having this heavy weight that comes sometimes from ancestral patterns, from what we've gone through at home, from what our parents have gone through. Just be able to come back to our crystalline core as liberated as we can. And I'm joining today live from Spain, Barcelona.
Ooh, chica. Yeah, that's amazing. I can really relate with like what you're saying, because that's like, the more we are in this, like honestly, business is like kind of a spiritual journey in itself. Like it really confronts you with like so many of your shadows, your lights as well. Like you discover your gift and you start to become more clear with your life mission, like your purpose on earth. And I'm really happy I'm welcoming you in this podcast, because like the point of this podcast, Shift Inside, is to help people have an inner shift, so they can start to shift their reality, shift like not just how they're feeling, but really swap their identity, like step into something that's more authentic, that's more them, like become more of them. So that's amazing, because we are aligned.
Yeah.
And also I really like the quantum travel. That is super cool. Like I also like to propose adventures, like because to me, and this is something I'm realizing more and more, and I feel like that's slowly going to get us to the subject of today. It's like when you bring people through adventures, through travel, like just like when you watch a movie at the cinema, it feels like you're just escaping the reality for a moment, entering another dimension. And when you exit the room, you're a slightly different person, like there is something that happens within you. And I feel like with the kind of work we do, because it's like we really take people into different places. And I feel like when they come back from that travel, from that adventure, that experience, something changed, like at a
100%.
deep level. Yeah.
It's such a deep transformation, and I've had the pleasure of witnessing your magic live. And it's exactly what she says. It's just a form of traveling where you feel secure, guided, and supported to also explore parts of you which are uncomfortable to face. So, 100% aligned, agreed, and in the same book as you are on this. So, if anyone hasn't had the pleasure of experiencing Marine's magic, I would highly recommend it.
Oh, thank you. Well, same goes for you, Juliette. And yeah, I feel like this is going to lead you to where we want to go because I don't know for you, Juliette, but like when you started your spiritual journey, I don't know if you heard of spiritual, like family constellation or like quantum healing and this kind of things. And I like, if you look at your past self, would you have been drawn to that actually, or like how would you have reacted? If you had been presented with that like straight from the beginning.
Mm, it's an interesting question because my old self, if we dated back to 4 years ago, was a different woman that I am today. I have had the pleasure and the opportunity to be more in the corporate space for a while. Believe it was part of my journey to test it out as well. And at the same time, I still was very much into healing, into the healing space. Believe it was part of my soul trying to scream so loud, woman, wake up, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. Nevertheless, it is true that family constellation came a bit later on. I remembered through sessions that the first time I was exposed to family constellation was at the year of 7, because my best friend back then was doing family constellations. It was more of the classical form. She was having the constellation sessions with her psychologist who was guiding her through creating the family with little puppets, etc. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. And then I absolutely forgot about constellations for years. Literally, I had no idea what it was up until I had my first session and remembered, I've heard of a constellation before. So yeah, it was interesting. And it is true that when you haven't had the experience, be it theta healing, be it family constellations, it can appear a bit, why would I do that? My life is amazing. Do I really need to dive deeper? Do I really need to open myself up to feel pain I don't want to feel? Well, the answer is yes.
Of course, of course.
It doesn't come to feeling what you don't want to feel. It's just being able to liberate yourself on all levels, on all bodies. And the body keeps the score to anyone who's for sure read the book. It is true. And the longer you wait to work on yourself from the inside out, the more fun the game is going to be to get rid of it, right?
Fun. I mean, fun. Because also it's like the more you accumulate those emotions, the trauma, because emotions attract other similar emotions. They vibrate from a certain frequency. So basically they will attract, like emotions, the only thing they want is that you let them free. They just want to liberate it from your body, and they're just like passing somehow. They're not even yours. And the thing, I mean, that's also my belief. And the thing is that you're going to attract to life events that are going to help you access those emotions, which means events that are going to create the same emotions, so that you're going to be able to tap into like not only this one but the other ones that were blocked in your body. So of course, the longer you wait, the worse it's going to get. And I personally, this is what I shared in the previous episode, when I started my spiritual journey, I started also being someone who is more like suppressing my emotion kind of person, like really suppressing. And for me, spirituality was such a beautiful way to keep compensating and keep avoiding feeling, because I thought to me that being spiritual meant I had to be neutral. I cannot react, And something that happened to me just yesterday, actually, I broke my favorite bowl, and I was like super mad and super upset about that. And I remember, taking like all the pieces that were broken on the ground, I was like, okay, girl, now you're facing two choices. Like, what do? Option one, you decide that it's just a ball, it's material, detachment, spiritual kind of Buddha way, or do you decide to go in your freaking emotions because you can feel that there is some like anger and even rage inside. And the me before, when I started my spiritual journey, I would have completely locked those emotions inside of me, pretend that, I'm super spiritual, so I should not react. And then, but the me today, I'm like, no, I'm tapping into like the anger and the rage. Also, I had like a Shinetsang massage, so like the facilitator told me, you might have some crisis, for some random things, you might like explode. And I was like, ah, that's what she's talking about.
Oh.
Yeah, so that was like, I was like, I'm just going mad for a bowl. Like, yeah, it was my favorite, but because sometimes we just judge how we are feeling. But here, I had like the best option for me was just to go also using somatic tools, like not giving it more fire than it deserves, but like just going into my body. And I just realized that, it helped me access emotions that were already stored in me, like the anger, the rage. It was already inside me. And it was like, in the end, I even say, thank you. Thank you that this happened, because I needed that experience somehow. I wish it was another bull still, but I needed that experience, to access something that was already inside of me. And I feel like there are so many people on their spiritual journey who are just super, super afraid of what's going on inside of them. Yeah. And so I'm really curious for you, Juliette, like how, yeah, how did you realize that actually?
Yeah, no, I truly resonate with what you say because it is a fact that when we get deeper into various spiritual practices, let's put it that way, or we start traveling to Asia, we discover an inner peace that can be very tricky because that inner peace makes us believe we don't have to feel the anger. We don't have to express it. Everything is fine. Let's just sit around and chill and meditate, do the yoga, do the pranayama, and it's fine. And I I deeply resonate with that because when I left living for Asia around 2 years ago, I was in a very bad position. I was in a very, very bad position. I had completely lost it, and I really needed a break. And so when I landed in Thailand on Koh Samui to be more exact, first thing I did was literally cry my eyes out. I was completely lost. What am I doing with my life? Na na na. And at the same time, some of the only emotions I could feel were, yes, there was sadness, but there was extreme joy at the same time. And so that's when the journey for me began of exploring depths of these emotions I hadn't been able to explore before. And at the same time came one of the traps, because you start exploring, but at the same time you start shedding off layers of these emotions you don't want to face. I'm explaining myself. So what happened is, for me, the tears were tears of years and years of going for a direction that was absolutely not aligned with my soul's mission. So it was pure force, not power. It was pure an ego way of going for something that was way too materialistic, not aligned with what I wanted. And so I went to one extreme of being like, okay, I'm super into this material world, promotions, being the best in what I do. And then I came to Asia. I had my big suitcase. I was gonna get my trainings done. It was really about reconnecting to myself. And what happened at the same time is, bit by bit, I started going to the other extreme of, why on earth do we need so many things? So I went from being super materialistic to literally rejecting everything. Everything. I was wearing the same clothes multiple days in a row, just saying, I don't need more, I don't need jewelry, who needs makeup anyway, why an iPhone, why all this? Because whether we want it or not, especially at times when you get deeper into the yoga path, there is this concept of detachment. that is really, really pushed into you into an extreme that I literally detached myself from everything. And that was a trap for me because detaching myself from all the material detached myself from my homeland. I was born in Belgium, and at some point I came back after a couple of months living in Asia to Europe, and it was impossible, literally. I rejected everything. I didn't understand why there was so much need for more of the material stuff, why there was so many sad people, why everything was just so heavy. Whereas in Asia it was flowy, it was on islands, it was eating fruits, it was all of that. And just for me, the biggest spiritual trap was really this detachment, this non-attachment that was drilled a bit too deep, and that obviously from my point of view I understood it in a way that was not serving me.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. And also, I want to add to that because I also have like I had a bit of that, but for me it was like not the biggest thing. Like with the emotions, that was one of the biggest trap I had. But also with like materialism, for me, I feel, and that's why I want for you listening to really take it with like your own way of being, because like I feel like there are some people who really don't care at all, Like for you, you were forcing yourself and pushing yourself to a certain direction, but for some people, you're already working there and that's your direction.
Yeah.
And so, for example, I can have that. I mean, I will just out myself a little bit here, but sometimes, I just wear the same thing, like not
Oh, but I
so
do
many
too.
days. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I'm just like, I don't feel like I'm pushing myself to be like non-materialistic or detached. It's just how it is, I'm not even forcing it. So I feel like here what's really important, like if you are in that trap and you really feel like it's not good for you and you feel like all the tension, then maybe you've been forcing yourself, But like if you are feeling, like, yeah, I don't mind. I mean, that's how I am. Then good, because it's not really a trap for you. And I feel like that's really important to add that because everyone have a different balance. Like everyone.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And I resonate with it. In my own experience, it's just going from one extreme to the other. That's where
Mm.
it got unhealthy because ultimately the extremes are a bit tricky, are a bit dangerous. And it's not about saying it's good or it's not good. Like
Mm.
right now as well, I've found a middle ground, but it was more of this. At some point, it was hatred also for the homeland. I didn't want
Mm.
to live in Europe anymore. I didn't want to be there. And it was interesting because at the same time, it's not like it was necessarily imposed on me um, from where I had spent some time, but it was more of a subtle way of bringing it in of, well, but don't remember, you just need yourself, and all the rest is fluff, which is
Mm.
true, but we cannot deny where we come from. We cannot deny the importance of having certain belongings that are important to us. And especially when I look at my design, which was in my case very interesting. So, design, I'm speaking of human design. One of the things that is important for me are also the material parts. So, I was literally rejecting my own being. And this is where
Mm.
I fell in the trap. Because when
Wow.
you start rejecting yourself, you lose yourself,
That's
literally.
exactly. And with spirituality, like what you're trying, I mean, to me, the point of spirituality is to find yourself back. And
Exactly.
yeah, and spirituality is not always, and that's also something I was sharing this last episode. It's not always, doing the meditation and the yoga and the pranayama, as you said. It's also sometimes watching a Netflix series or getting yourself a nice stone or jewelry or something. I mean, for me, what's really important is how you do the things rather than what it is, like your relationship to do things. Like, where is this coming from? Is it like a deep soul desire? Is it like a real, genuine, like your essence asking for it? Or is it like unhealed trauma? And it's very, very different. Yeah.
Literally,
And,
literally, and that's also how it is. You can be also be buying yourself a designer bag, and it doesn't make you a materialistic bitch, to say it, pardon my French. Or you can just be like, I want to wear the same sarong I have for a week, and that doesn't make you a hippie. It's just whatever
ooh, yes.
you, and that's well, that's to me the key, and that was for me the learning path in all of this. Is a lot of noise is around us when it comes to spirituality. There is no right or wrong. It's about you encountering what is resonating, not with your ego, with your heart, with you at your essence, at your core, and what can you bring into your life. Just like you say, there are so many spiritual practices. Baking, making food can be a spiritual practice. Whenever you do it with intention, you have created a spiritual practice. Yoo-hoo, well done.
Exactly. And in the end, you just realize that everything is spirituality.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
in the end, honestly, everything. And it's your relationship to it, your relationship to you. And then it's really about checking inside of you, like, how things are really landing. How is it feeling for you? Are you forcing it, or is it genuinely, like, does it give you life force, energy? Then that's probably the right thing. And I'm also curious, how did you, because you realized that at some point, so how did you realize and how did you come back to finding your balance?
Well, I did it the hard way. So one thing led to the other, and I decided, being so miserable, let's use a bit of a word of how it was in Europe, I decided to go back to Asia. So I was following my extreme, and I went to Indonesia, not to Bali. I went to Sumba, which is a very remote island. It's a beautiful island, a nature paradise, but it's very isolated. Very little tourists, not exploited, in full development, which is amazing, but at the same time makes it extremely lonely. So there I sat on that island. I went volunteering for an amazing foundation. But at the same time, I realized, wow, okay, now I literally got what I wanted. I am alone on an island with nature, and that's it. And so being in that extreme of complete detachment from everything, at the same time allowed me to go so much deeper into my being, and with that reconnect all the different parts of myself, do a lot of inner work, explore a lot of emotions. I loved what you said earlier about realizing at some point you couldn't express the rage you had inside of you. I realized I had the same. So what I did is I had more or less a daily habit of, between the classes, I was a yoga teacher back then, amongst other things. I went to the sea, and me being alone on the beach, I was just screaming my lungs out. Screaming my lungs out on that beach, letting all that stored rage and all the emotions come out, going in the sea and being like, just guide me. I want to know what I do with my life. And yeah, and it was priceless, because as extreme as it was to find myself on such a remote island, it's when you feel like you've really hit the depths of your being that you encounter yourself, and not this constructed self you might have had for a long time, for years of your life, but your true self, your authentic self, your inner child, your wisdom woman that's just like, hey, I've been here all along. Just give me a hand and let's start getting deeper and exploring and reconnecting to each other. And so it was both beautiful and very tough at the same time, but it led me to where I am today. So I will do it again.
Nice, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, you really went the hard way. Like, also you listening, you don't have to go the hard way, you know? That's why we're here
No.
as well,
Well,
to help you and guide you there.
100%. I always say we have a soul's mission, we have a soul's path, and if you start reconnecting to what you're truly here to do, there is no right or wrong way. You will be facing what you need to face. You will be facing
Exactly.
yourself the ways you need to face yourself. And so at the same time, it was extreme, but I loved it. And it was beautiful, and I have amazing memories from it. And I speak about it with a lot of love. But it is true, you don't need to end on the other side of the world completely alone on an island. Sure.
Like if it's that's not your thing. But also like I feel like that's also the thing with like the spiritual path. It feels like there is kind of the one perfect answer. I don't know for you if you also had that, but it feels like there is one right way, and you just realize like the more you experienced and the more you realize like how depending on what raw material life gives you, depending on the events, depending on what's happening, you just realize that the good and the bad gives you what you need to grow also in like closer to your being and get closer to your being. And so I don't know if you had that. Also, I come from like the kind of perfectionistic kind of background, like very
100%.
perfectionist. Yeah, you too. So, for me, like it really feels like spirituality, like a certain way of approaching spirituality was really perfect for all the shadows I already had. Because the shadows were like, good, we can keep on being like, hidden and just like play our way like subconsciously. Yeah?
100%.
Do
I
you like, yeah?
100% agree. It is. This is a tricky part as well. We believe we're gonna go, oh, let's go super into our bodies, and we're gonna do different practices, and we're gonna do our somatic releases, and we've done the work. Well, no, joke's on you. You haven't. You've just faced the good parts. You went to the light, and you haven't faced your shadows.
Yeah,
And
exactly. It feels like just a house that you built, it's like you just make all the design, but the foundations are completely rotten and you need to do redo the whole foundation. Like,
literally,
you're gonna have a problem. No, my
yeah.
house is beautiful. Ah.
No, it's so true. It's so true. It's so on point. It's really like that because, yeah, I mean, also we wouldn't be able to hold space like we do and guide people like we do if we hadn't been through it. Let's
Exactly.
face it. Let's be honest.
100%. Yeah.
If I may ask you a question, if you had the biggest learning point you could give someone who's a bit lost, a bit wondering, okay, where should I begin? Is Asia for me the solution? Do I need to travel to encounter myself? What would you tell that person?
Hmm. I feel like I would really ask them to connect with themselves and feel like, I mean, they have the answer in the end. They have the answer. And if this is something that calls them, like for me, it was Asia as well. Like I felt called as well to travel to Asia. And there's something with Asia. But
Mm.
I feel like your body, your higher self, like the your essence know really, really well what you need. And so here I want to say there is no black or white again. And you could have like the same person could have chosen to stay home or go to Asia, and they could still get to the same result. But now on the way, like if they go to Asia or home, like just feel what feels right to you. Like you're always, always, always gonna get what you need, because
Mm.
this is what you make out of all those experiences, and whatever you have inside of you is still like whether you go to like Asia or you stay at home, you still have the same emotions, you still have the same shadows. So life is just going to adjust, like, oh, she's leaving to Asia, so now we're going to change a bit the script so she can get what she needs to get out of those shadows. But if she's staying at home, oh, that's not okay, it's okay, we're just going to give her the right persons, the right opportunities, and maybe she will even end up going to Asia then, who knows, or to the other side like South America, who knows, like I just want to say, and I feel like this is where, like, that's kind of also like the trap when we believe that there is just one perfect solution that is going to reach us to kind of enlightenment or like reaching our deep selves and being just light, love, and light. But in the end, no. And this is like how we started this point. Like, there is no one right answer. And I feel like sometimes we also miss the lessons because we believe that we understood the right lesson from what we're going through. But sometimes the best lesson is just, hey, it doesn't matter.
Mm.
Relax, chill. Like what I'm learning as well. And oh, I think this is also something we spoke about. I don't know if I think I didn't speak about this in the previous episode, but when you start to take care of your health at all levels, the spiritual, mental, physical, and for you, like, I mean, I remember for me, if I will go to bed late, like past 10, I would freak out. I would be like, oh my God, what am I doing to my body? And if I'm eating something bad, it's like, oh my God, like almost if I had just like drunk poison.
Mm.
And it's just like you get to this point, like this extreme, where you want to take so much care of your health at all levels, that you actually create more damages.
Yeah.
Like you create more damages. Yeah, exactly, because there's just so much stress that you put on your body. And this is also like I had to realize that. And for me, like right now, and I told you yesterday on the phone, I'm going to bed at like midnight, and midnight will be early sometimes, like crazy. And before that, like even just a few months ago, I would have felt like really bad about that, like super stressed, like what am I doing? I'm screwing my life. And now I'm like, well, Marine, maybe the lesson here is to see that you're human, you're going through a certain phase of your life, and it's fine. And you're still functioning, and you're still happy and able to connect with your higher self. And by the way, I feel I'm much more in touch with myself, with my higher self and my essence, because I'm not resisting it.
100%.
And just one thing to add on that, like when I feel like, yeah, for me that would be better if I go to bed early. Obviously, that would be much better. But I feel like what's really important for me now is get the lesson of the least resistance. The less I resist things, the better it gets. And sometimes not resisting going to bed at midnight versus forcing yourself to go at 10, and if you don't, you feel like super bad. Well, maybe that's better, like to go to bed at midnight and not resist it.
I
Yeah.
100% agree, and it's I've literally been through the same. Because when you start getting deeper into all that spirituality, personal development, your health, it becomes obsessive, literally.
Mm.
And from my experience, I started really obsessing on the details, and sleep was one of it. I've been studying sleep for years. I know how important it is to get enough of hours, la la la. And at some point, I lost myself a bit, in a sense that if I didn't have my 8 hours, my day would be screwed. And so I fell into the trap. I jumped into it head first, being like, oh, I need to sleep at a certain time. I need to wake up at a certain time. If I don't wake up before the sun, I've done something wrong. And so it was interesting. And it's actually my partner, Leo, who allowed me to see that it really does not matter. It's not because one night you go sleeping at midnight, at 1 a.m., at 2 a.m., you don't sleep because you're inspired, because you're in flow, because you're creating, because you're enjoying a movie or God knows what you're doing, that your life is over. And it was an interesting learning experience because it was really uncomfortable. It was really uncomfortable waking up at 10 a.m. thinking, beating myself up like I haven't done a thing during my day. And the interesting part is, it is something I had, thank you granddad, learned from my granddad, who had a story running of literally, if you don't wake up early, you're worthless. Your journey is over. Your day is over. And so realizing it was not only not mine, but shit story that doesn't serve me, allowed me also to liberate it. Because yes, we have all the tools we need to get rid of it. And so now, just like you, I just follow my rhythm, my cycle. We're women, we're cyclical beings. We just need to be in tune with what we need. And if that is sleeping at midnight and waking up at 8, yay. And if that is waking up at 6 a.m., yay too.
Exactly. And this is like, I feel like this is bringing just so much peace. And honestly, for me, the way I had to, realize, but honestly, sometimes you kind of know, you're aware of it, but you still leave it in your, like, on the side because you don't want to face it. And for me, it happened like kind of against my will in a way, in a sense that during the summer I went hiking, like for a few weeks hiking with my family, and that was so amazing. But obviously when you're hiking the full day, and we were doing also camping in the nature, well, I didn't have the time for my full routines, and I had to adapt. I mean, here we would sleep early, of course, but I wouldn't have the time to do my routines. And as I shared in the last episode, I could even go to 3 hours routine. Like you literally start the day, like half of the day is already gone. And so I had no other choice but to adapt. And that's through doing that for a few weeks, like trying to do some of the routines here and there, I realized that everything was okay. And not only everything was okay, but I was happier. I was just feeling much more happy and much more in tune with myself. And so when I came back home, that's when I realized, like, okay, maybe there are things I can do different, you know? And for me, yeah, that was a big, big change. And sometimes I still have that, but for other things. But now in the morning, I don't force myself. I mean, sometimes it's funny because when you've been doing routines over and over and over, you start a bit, and then your full body is like, wait, okay, we do the full 3 hours. No, 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 not anymore. We're not doing that.
100% agree. Wow, wow, wow. It is so true because, well, you've lived in Asia too, so you you know how easily it is to you go to a yoga class, it's 1 hour and a half. So you don't even think about having it 45 minutes like a lot of classes are in Europe. And it's just because before you know it, you wake up, let's say you wake up at 7 a.m. You do all your practices, it's close to 11. And to think that it's something you need as a necessity in order to feel good, to feel enlightened, to feel aligned is a trap. With all love
Exactly.
and respect, it's a trap. It's like when I was on my meditation journey and I'm not going to say I was forcing myself because I did it because I loved it and it was part of the journey, but just feeling the need in a way to meditate every day for minutes and hours. It's amazing, but is it necessary? I've outgrown that identity, those ideas I had of a necessity for me in order to feel good. I can sit down outside. I do that more or less every day. And it's not really every day. I do it whenever I feel aligned doing it. I breathe deeply. I connect to myself. I feel the light coming in. I sing. I do mantras. I do yoga. I do Pilates. I do whatever I want to do, but not as strict as it used to be of this needs to be the routine. And if it's not done that way in that specific order and every day, I'm not going to feel good and I'm not a good person, not taking care of my spirit, of my body, because in the end, you cannot be so rigid. And going to spirituality can have you sometimes fall into the trap of these ideas of I need all these routines in order to function and feel good. No, whenever there comes a necessity, it should be a red flag. You need to want to do it, to select it, to elect it, but not do anything out of necessity. If it's at first, that's fine. But at some point, wake up and realize you don't need. You decide to do something because it does good to you. But doing things out of necessities,
Yeah, and also that's like to me that's the opposite of what you're trying to achieve because
yeah.
spirituality is everything but control or resistance, you know? It's like I mean you will feel the resistance, but when you surrender and let go, that's when you become truly spiritual, you know? And so yeah, that's the thing. That's also what I shared in the last episode. Like we tend to confuse the way with the tools. Like we think that the tools, meditation, yoga, this is what's leading us there. So they are amazing tools. Like just when you go hiking, you know, when you have the good hiking shoes and the pole and you have the guide, so much more easy to reach the summit. This we agree. But still, the way is the way. So whatever tools you have, you're still walking the same way. And you should remember that this is still you walking the way. And you can access this surrender, this sense of letting go and the joy, like the bliss with so many different things. Like also something I shared, like you know, just watching a Netflix series and not beating myself up after, like really being genuinely in the feeling, like oh, that felt good, that felt different from like all the things I'm doing normally, and I was super present, you know.
It really comes down to as much as we want to look for outside solutions through different practices, through different masters, through different foods, this is just the outside. And when you shift your perspective and you realize that it's only part of it, but if you do it, whereas on the inside, your inner garden is not fixed, it's not going to work because you're just going to keep adding on more practices, more tools, more necessities from the outside. Whereas if you really start pausing and just look, okay, what does my little girl, little boy need? What is the one thing that perhaps I haven't been able to see because I've been so busy doing all the things, doing all the practices? Because that's also something at some point I went into. I was doing so much of the good things, so much of the yoga, so much of the pranayama, so much of the vegan healthy food, la la la, that I was like, it's still doing. So as much as you want to trick yourself into believing I am being, you're doing.
Wow, that's a powerful one. Yeah.
And it works in a specific order, which is be, do, have, not do, be, have. So you need to really realign and rework yourself on the inside first, because otherwise you're just going to go on for years of seeking like this outside validation. Oh, I've done the yoga class, now I can feel good. Oh, I've done this, now I can feel... No.
It's like, I feel good and I'm doing the yoga class.
Exactly. 100%. 100%. And if I had to really present my biggest conclusion of this beautiful, messy journey, would be that more than seeking anything on the outside, just dare to go within. And it's something that's used so much, and it's a bit vulgarized because it's, oh, let's look within. What does it mean? It doesn't mean more than just sit down for a couple of minutes, reconnect to your body. Are there any physical sensations? Do I feel perhaps uncomfortable? Are there any emotions? Are there no emotions? And what is it that I need from the inside out and not from the outside in?
That's beautiful. And that's so, so true, because it's like you can have two persons doing exactly the same thing on the outside, they're doing the meditation, the yoga, everything sounds good, but one is doing this out of this place of, I want that, I desire that, and it feels good. I'm already feeling good, but I don't need that. I do it because of the joy and the energy it brings me. And the other one is like more like, with the checking list, like, oh my God, check, 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 I have to do that, It's completely different, and this is not going to lead them to the same results and the same outcomes, obviously. And so, yeah, that's why it's super, I 100% agree with what you said, and that was like so powerful and really beautiful the way you said that. But in the end, it's really about reconnecting to yourself. Like, you can have way more joy. Like, this is what I did this morning. I stood like 30 more minutes in my bed, like just to finish the dream I had. I do that sometimes. I just love that, keeping on the story and just inventing. And that felt much better than meditation.
100%. It's a form of meditation.
It is as well. It is as well. So, yeah.
Because in the end, and perhaps that's also a precious one to share, that I was fortunate enough to receive from one of my teachers, my masters, all the way from India. And it was, don't fall into the trap of someone telling you there is a certain way of doing something. Don't start restricting your life, be it also with food. A lot of spiritual journeys tell you should eat, let's use the easiest example, let's have a diet where you only eat plant-based, or let's have a diet when you only eat animals, or no garlic. And it's just, in the end, it doesn't matter. Just do your own mixture. In the end, you're your own human being. And allow yourself the luxury of realizing that your way is your way, it's your art, and it's fine if the person next to you is not creating the same art.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
it should be, literally.
Yeah, I was just sharing this morning on Thread, like, we all live on our different planets, like everyone live on different planets. And the problem comes when you try to change people's planets into your own, like turn them into how you see the world. That's the big problem. And that's why we also need communication to understand that the others are the others, and they see the world because of their own world. Like, it's different inside of them, so they see things differently. And also, like, something that I've been wanting to add is that when you get started on your spiritual journey, it's also okay to be taken like carefully, this one, but it's okay if you fall into the trap. And sometimes you will need to fall into the trap to understand also what we're saying here, because us sharing something with you is really good for kind of preventing, but I feel like it's even better for when you are in the trap to be like, okay, I'm not freaking out, like that's normal. I heard that was possible, like it could happen. And I feel like, if you need to go in that journey, in the traps, then this is also your experience and you're going to learn so much from that. And the only thing I can really give you as a piece of advice is just embrace it all and remember that this is happening for you and that you have tools, you have ways to get back out of that. But I feel like the one way that's really going to let you go out of the trap is when you embrace it and you embrace your experience without trying to resist it, force it, and you're like, that hurts. It's happening for me. What am I learning? How can I reconnect with me? How does this experience make me meet myself?
This is
Yeah,
so well said. It's so beautiful and it's so precious because the entire point of this conversation is not for us to be like parents telling a child, "Oh, you can't do this," because what is the child going to do? It's going to rebel itself. It's going to do things.
exactly. And that's also a trap, by the way. Thinking that we
Exactly.
know better.
We don't. We're all human beings. We're on the same level, and we're just walking the path together. It's more about being aware of the possibilities that are most likely going to come on your path as well, and be able to recognize them, to not get lost in literally a possibility of years and years and years of huh. Oh.
What am
Well,
I supposed to learn here? I forgot.
because
Yeah,
ultimately we need to go through experiences. Experiences shape us how we are today. Without our experiences, we wouldn't be who we are either. And there are
yeah,
going to be more traps and there are going to be more lessons to learn. But when you've been able to shift the perspective from seeing as something bad, as something that's happening to you, as something that you did wrong, you just realize, well, it's part of the game, it's part of the joy, and I'm gonna come out of it, if not better, wiser.
yeah, exactly. And that's also part of the embodied experience. Like you really, like this is something that I'm slowly realizing, like I'm coming like away slowly from that trap that, when you shifted something in you, like a limiting beliefs, then it's gone forever. Well, there is
Mm,
also a little bit of a time, period where you actually need to kind of prove yourself, with life, with the universe, and you need to have the embodied experience as well. Like the time for it, like we call it the integration time. That's
yeah.
when it lands in your system, and depending on what we've been removing and changing, it can take more or less time. And also knowing that they have different layers. For example, the fear of rejection can have different layers. So for some things, you might be not reacting anymore after one session, and wow, beautiful, amazing. Maybe you've also been doing some work already before on that part. But then you realize that every time you're asked, you're invited to go deeper and deeper and deeper into each layers, which means that, yeah, the embodied experience are really, really important because that's also what's keeping you in touch with where you are on your journey. And this is what's going to bring you closer to yourself in the end.
No, it's 100% true, and I see it every day in the work that I do and in my own processes as well. Let's take an easy example of we all have childhood wounds, and every human being walking this planet Earth has them. And let's take the easy example of an abandonment wound we can have had because of, let's take one I had. I went to school. Well, hello. I went to school and I felt abandoned. It was never my parents' intention to abandon me or to feel that I was abandoned. Nevertheless, the little girl of around 3 years old was like, why are Papa and Mama leaving me alone in that space? I don't know. I felt abandoned. And so it's not that, okay, you realize it, you liberate it, that from one day to the other, okay, you're rid of it. No, it's exactly what you said, Marine. It has layers. And the integration also comes with you being faced with other abandonment moments in your life and realizing, okay, do I now have the tools, and the tools from the inside out being a different lens of seeing the experience, different ways of coping with my experiences that are going to do that I can pass the quote unquote test and not fall into thinking again, oh, I'm being abandoned, but seeing, okay, that person is just going another direction. And this integration period is also necessary, because whether we want it or not, life is not going to be one straight line. It's supposed to be an amazing roller coaster where you go ups and downs and lefts and rights, and it's intense. If it was one straight line, it would be extremely boring. So
And
that's
also maybe
always
it wouldn't make sense, to be there.
exactly. And that's always what I love to remind myself as well whenever I'm faced with one of these tricky experiences that appear every day in life. I'm just like, I've seen this before. I've worked on this. So it doesn't mean I'm not going to feel it. It doesn't mean I'm not going to be uncomfortable or I'm not going to express my emotions. But I'm going to do it from a place of knowing when I express myself, when I liberate myself, well, the monster in front of me is not going to be that monstrous. It's just becoming another event in life, and it's like, okay, well, I've passed another test. Cool. What's gonna come next?
Yay! Next. And also, like, most of the time, like, the fear, like, the anticipation, the fear of how is it gonna feel is just worse than how it really feels and how it really is.
100%, 100%, and it's it's something super interesting and super beautiful, and I'm sure we can go into years of discussing this.
Yeah, definitely. But that can be for a next podcast, like a next episode. We can.
Hey.
But yeah, is there anything you want to add to that? I feel like we've been covering quite a bunch of things, but again, it could be like for ages and ages. Like, is there something else you'd like to add to wrap it up?
Just as a general reminder that just love yourself, hold yourself all the way through it. You're your best ally. You're gonna meet, and you're meeting amazing people every day. Open yourself up to possibilities, but most of it to possibilities from yourself, of you nurturing yourself from the inside out. So that whatever comes your way, whatever monsters you have to face on your path, you'll be able to face them. There will always be angels, being at symbolic angels of people you meet in your life, who are going to help you get through it. So don't get scared. And if you are, keep walking. Because when you're scared, there's something good on the other side.
Ooh, yeah, usually the bigger the resistance, the bigger the thing on the other side. And I'd like also to add the thing, like, because you're talking about symbolic angels coming in the form of people, that's also one of the trap we fall into in the spiritual path, like getting too self-centered and forget about the other ones. But to me, and that's the thing I want to finish with, is that spirituality and getting back to yourself and connecting with yourself is also a way to meet others.
Yeah, 100%.
So important. Yeah, maybe another episode. Okay, thank you, Juliette. It was such a pleasure to have you here. You are the first guest in the Shift Inside podcast, and I'm really, really happy. Like, because like the little secret as well is that, when I do things, sometimes I like to keep it like in a specific way. I do it all by myself, and I want it to be in a certain way. And inviting you here today is also me stepping into, new possibilities, collaboration, opening, So I'm really so appreciative that you're here. This is also part of my journey, to open more and to do things different than what I had in mind at first.
I love it. Thank you so much for, allowing me to be here with you today. Hope the listeners have a very insightful moment with us.
Mm-hmm.
Sending so much love, so much energy, so much light to everyone. And just remember, your path is your path. Live it. And thank you, Marine. This is an amazing podcast. I love it.
Amazing! I'm super, super grateful. You have the best day, and see you soon.
See you soon.
Ciao.